Hello again, everybody. Yes, I am once more talking face to face, but don't worry, this won't be the whole video. A couple nights ago, I had a dream, which was so bizarre and so strange and so weird and all the other adjectives that I can possibly imagine. And I remembered most of it, and just because of how weird it was, I thought it would be a fun idea to record it for you all. For posterity's sake, let's say. So here's my weird dream, which only has a healthy amount of embellishment. Enjoy. I shall start this story like all great epics. In media res, the scene opens up with a great battle that I was fighting alongside my lord on a long table. We had reached a juncture where my side knew we could win if only we could heat up a piece of metal wire enough. But unfortunately, my Zippo simply could not stay lit for long enough because of the wind that was blowing throughout the room. I devised a number of different techniques to heat it up in spite of the wind, but each time the wind simply blew out all the fires we had concocted. Finally, I thought to use the Pokemon move Protect, remembering that it also creates a shield which guards against all strong winds. And thus I was able to heat up the metal wire, which had transformed into a wax bulb at the end of a stick, until it was melting. And then I gave it to Ian, who poured it onto a piece of wax paper. I have no idea how this won us the battle, but it did. And the next scene has us celebrating at the same long table, with King Robert Baratheon and Lord Eddard Stark from Game of Thrones. I hope you mean to hunt down those hooligans until they are no more, Robert. I do, said the king, who was so big compared to me with such a massive coat that I couldn't even see his face while sitting right next to him. But right now, we have other matters to deal with. Like what? Ned asked. And here we go from one dimension to another. From the world of Game of Thrones with its expertly crafted dialogue and absolutely marvelous medieval battles, into the dimension of my own fantasy writings. Surely you've noticed that it's not just against political enemies that we're fighting. I hear tell of other factions that are rising up with far more devious goals. It is at this point that I get up and walk around the room and look at a map of the Gadrian Empire, an empire of my own creation, on a wall in the north of the room. The king then says, I've heard that the society has been reformed, and that they're planning all sorts of new machinations, and that they have new help. The Jade Sorcerer is free again, just as unstoppable as he was before. And what's worse, there's news of a more sinister evil underground, something which has been abducting all who attempt to investigate and uproot it. So obviously we're going to have an investigation. What would that do? The investigation would solve all of our problems, and it would uproot this sinister evil. Blah, 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 blah. I was paired with a woman who was at one point Mary, and another point Michaela. And as I was paired with Michaela, the room shifted into a library. We searched throughout the library for a few seconds, when suddenly we became distracted by a chalkboard in the north of the room. For we noticed that there was a hanger on either side of the chalkboard, but one was made of metal and the other plastic. The plastic one was extremely over the top and had a ridiculous hood on top of it. But for some reason Michaela was swayed that it was weird by the fact that the sound of her fist knocking against it was different. We took the over-the-top plastic head off and found a plastic lever underneath it. Naturally, Michaela switched the lever and it opened up a secret door next to the chalkboard. Everyone in the library apparently noticed, and they asked us what we were doing. I don't remember exactly what they said, but I do remember that we told them to get backup for us when we investigated down the stairs, and they seemed to oblige. We went through the doorway and found a staircase on the other side. At the bottom of the staircase I saw a man, and Michaela turned into Mary. We began to walk down the stairs, and I realized that the man was in fact Mr. Rogers, who was leaning on a balcony overlooking a massive mining shaft which went all the way down into the abyss. He saw us and beckoned us down to the bottom of the stairs, and Mary happily ran down to meet him. But as she reached the bottom I said, Wait! No! And Mr. Rogers proceeded to yeet Mary over the balcony. Just as I thought. That was not Mr. Rogers. That was a shapeshifter. Immediately I got out my knife and approached the creature to fight it. But in response, it took the form of my sister to make me hesitate, whether due to a sibling rivalry or from my previous off-screen training for such a situation. I did not hesitate, and instead slashed at it. It dodged and transformed into my crush. I think. It didn't actually look like someone I have a crush on. But it didn't matter since I stabbed it through the head. The shapeshifter then proceeded to dissolve into a silvery liquid puddle on the floor, and it began to talk to me. What exactly it said I don't remember, but I think it was something along the lines of, "Hey, remember how you planned to have the Grand Warlock be the only shapeshifter left after the fall of the Empire? Yeah, well, let's make it so that now there are a bunch of them for no reason." To which I replied, "Wouldn't that just make this some stupid fan fiction and not the actual representation of the way the world I've painstakingly crafted works?" "Yeah, but I hate fan fiction." Tough. The shapeshifter then proceeded to craft itself into a hall of mirrors as a means of causing confusion. It worked. I slashed around for hours trying to figure out how to set myself free, all while fending off a man who was using the mirrors to his advantage. But my brain then paused the story and tried to figure out whether or not it would be a better idea to introduce a rescue character, possibly someone from the library, or to cut away. It chose to cut away. The scene then goes to a bunch of schmucks who are trying to find their way around. Now, my memory is a little fuzzy, about this part especially, and part of me wishes that I had used the opportunity of writing this story to get drunk, since that would have allowed me to actually make sense of this next series of events. But no, here I am, sober as a judge, trying to remember the strange, fantastical elements that my mind concocted to bring together this perfectly crafted nonsense of a story. All I can remember about this scene is that these guys are attempting to fight off a bunch of shapeshifters, and it's here that we learn these shapeshifters are actually unkillable and self-regenerative, which is unfortunate because it really puts a dampening on my plan to destroy them all. Then, suddenly, these idiots have all been cornered in the middle of an underground football stadium, and immediately the scene goes back to me, but in third person for some reason, and it's here that I learn that I actually have the ability to travel at light speed. I use my newfound light speed powers to shoot bullets at my captor. Unfortunately, my captor is faster than bullets, so I use my lightspeed powers to cut off my captor's hands with a pair of hedge trimmers. The scene then goes back to those guys in the middle of the football stadium, and they watch as I use my newfound power to cut off the hands of everyone who's attacking them. I meet up with them and we attempt to find our way out of the underground labyrinth. We finally come upon a large room, which has the mixed appearance of a gym and a cafeteria, which has the mixed appearance of a gym and a cafeteria, which has the mixed appearance of a gym and a cafeteria, where hundreds of people are gathered sitting down at the various tables. Unfortunately, some of them get up and try to attack us. I attempt to use my lightspeed power, but since the dream is now presenting itself through my eyes in the first person, the ability is no longer active, and I become sad. It is now that I must pull the listener aside to talk for a moment about the greatest character my mind has ever accidentally made. Grandma. For you see, Grandma is an absolute Chad, and she gets stuff done. She suddenly started appearing in my dreams probably a couple months ago. She's a big black woman who is not actually my grandmother. But if ever there truly was a strong, independent black woman who don't need no man, it would be Grandma. Now, Grandma heard about all this stuff going down in the labyrinth and immediately concocted the correct plan to solve all of our problems. Meanwhile, down in the gymateria, I'm talking to some random kid who's telling me about all of his problems and why he's glad he's been brainwashed, and how it makes him happy that he's finally found fulfillment and yada yada yada, and I realize, oh, that's why you were all trying to kill me. You've been brainwashed. Unfortunately, my lightspeed power is still inactive, so I have to hold off on escaping. And you can't say I didn't try. Because I did. It is at this time that Grandma storms down through the school entrance at the level above us and places a shockwave charge on the floor. When the desk manager at the reception office comes to her and says, "Ma'am, you can't place that here," she slaps him right across the face and proceeds to activate the charge. The charge blows up and the roof over the gymateria collapses. Luckily, all the falling rocks simply turn into a bunch of black pillows filled with orange threads. So there we are, buried by pillows as I look up and see, all the way to the top of the ceiling, that the ground level is all cracked, with the sunlight leaking through. Naturally, I snapped my fingers, which created enough of a shockwave to break through the final layer of ground that held back the full might of the sun. With the light pouring into the room, everyone was cured of their brainwashing, and we collectively began creating a mountain of pillows as a means of climbing out of the gymateria. It also seems that the sunlight was enough to either kill or cure the shapeshifters as well, and everyone became jolly good contributing members of society once more. Or so I think. All I really remember is that we were creating a pillow mountain when suddenly the dream ended, and I slowly drifted out of my subconscious and moved into the realm of stable, consistent reality.